What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Waste World Podcast. I'm your host, Gage Edwards, and today we're diving back into the topic of food waste. We all know food waste is an issue that reaches far beyond the grocery store or the kitchen. Every day, families make decisions about what to buy, how much to prepare, how to store food, and when to throw it away. Those small decisions can add up to a significant amount of waste. And understanding why food waste happens in the first place can help us identify practical ways to prevent it. And today we're looking at the research and what that research can tell us about household food waste, the habits that lead to it, and changes families can make to conserve more food. So if you like this conversation, you want to hear more from the Waste World Podcast, make sure you subscribe to the show on Spotify, Apple iTunes, or other podcasting services. Check out the video version on YouTube. Go to waste360.com for more stories from the waste and recycling industry, including more podcasts, and share this show with a friend. Let someone know about the show and rate it 5 stars, or give us the best rating you can on your podcasting service. Okay. Enjoy the episode. Joining me today is Dr. Brenna Ellison, Director of the Center for Food Conservation and Waste Reduction, and a nationally recognized researcher focused on consumer food waste and food conservation. Dr. Ellison's work examines why food waste happens in our homes, what research tells us about the habits that lead to wasted food, and how families, businesses, and policymakers can work together to reduce it. Brenna, thank you for being here. Welcome to the Waste World Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Gage. Thanks so much for having me.
I appreciate you coming on. Food waste is a topic we talk about constantly on this show because we all eat food. We all waste food some way or another, I'm sure. But I'd like to jump into things about you first. And to start us off, can you tell us about the work that you guys do at the Center for Food Conservation and Waste Reduction? What kind of research questions are you trying to answer?
Yeah, great question. First, I do want to acknowledge, so the Center for Food Conservation and Waste Reduction is supported by funding from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. So this is a grant-funded center. And so our center's mission is to actually work with households and try to meet them where they are to reduce food waste. And so some of the big objectives of our center is, first, we have a website that's conservefood.org, and we try to pull together resources that we find from all over the country and world and kind of put those in one place. So we have a really nice resource library you can filter through to try to help households find the different things that would be helpful for them at home, whether that's meal planning templates, how to do a good shopping list, food storage, food preservation, how to start composting at home. So we try to think about the whole food management continuum and bring all those resources together in one place. We also have some educational objectives with the center. And so we do have a really cool training program for college students called our Food Conservation Specialist Program, where we teach them about food systems broadly and how policy interacts with health and nutrition and then interacts with the environment, and kind of look at all the interconnected nature of the food system. And then we also teach them how to actually learn about and do research in their home communities about food waste and the practices, and then translate that research into, okay, how can I help my community? So that's a really cool program that we also have going on.
Excellent. Yeah, I guess when I was in college, I was trying not to waste food as much as possible because I didn't have much. So I was like, I've got to make this last and work, and I'm going to make sure all this ramen is eaten appropriately.
Yeah, it works that way unless you get to go to the dining halls, right? And then it's like, there's so much food. I can take anything and everything. And so, once you're out on your own, it does look a little different.
Yeah, definitely. And even my shopping, I'm going to pivot into households here soon. Since starting the show, I've been a better consumer at home where I'm not wasting things. I'm not overbuying. And I know that we in America, we like to indulge. We like to overbuy, or we like to make big portions. And I'm like, I got to scale this down. I'm cooking for just me. I got to figure this out. So if your research is relying on, heavily on household food waste, what have been some of the most surprising findings that you've uncovered about like why families throw away food and maybe why they're not prepared?
Yeah, so there's so many reasons out there, right? I think the ones that we hear most commonly are people don't understand date labels, right? Like sell by, use by, best by. There's so many terms. What do they mean? So that there is confusion, but I don't think that's the only thing going on. I think a lot of people they're optimistic, right? Like they want to be good providers at home. They want to do home cooked meals. And often the reality is it's just sometimes really hard to follow through on plans. Like you have soccer practice or church or any other number of commitments you've made. And it's like, oh, yeah, I'm not going to get time to cook that broccoli today. Right. Like it's so sometimes I think it's just like we have these expectations of ourselves that sometimes it's hard to live up to. So I guess like when households ask me, what to try, one thing I'm like, just be honest with yourself and be a realistic planner. Like if I know I'm gonna, kind of lame out and be like, take out tonight, like just plan that in instead of buying the food and then not using it. So I'm trying to think other things that are surprising. Something that's been surprising to us when we have households do these 5-day food waste audits. Like a lot of the waste that households have is inedible. And so that's like eggshells, coffee grounds, like apple cores, things like that. And so the solutions there are very different than solutions for if I don't have time to use up my food, right? And so that helps us also have different conversations with households and also means different things when we think about policy and other levers that, maybe we should be trying to pull.
Yeah, to that point about the takeout night. In my grocery shopping, I know I'm going to eat out one night because it's just going to happen. So I always pick a day. I'm like, all right, this is the day that I'm hitting a restaurant or something or quick fast food. So I'm even preparing for it. And if I can do it, I know these other families can too. It's a possibility we can all do.
Yeah.
Is there a particular point on the food journey, and we're talking grocery shopping, meal planning, storage, leftovers, expiration dates, where you see the greatest amount of food being wasted? Is there like a real pain point along that journey?
That's a really good question. Um, I
Everything's bad,
don't.
right? It's
No,
just all
yeah,
bad.
no. I was just trying to think. Like I do think for a lot of households, like leftovers is a pain point. So in some households, like you just have people that don't enjoy eating leftovers. That's not something they like to have. And so for those households, you might say, okay, like let's try to make less upfront then. So we avoid having the leftovers to deal with. But for other households, they could just get tired of eating the same thing. And so maybe they're lacking that creativity or like, how can I turn them into something new that I'm excited about? And so, there are really good resources out there about loving your leftovers and how to transform them. So yeah, I think leftovers is the one that's kind of interesting. I feel like when people do the fridge clean out, there's often lots of random things left that they're like, okay, this is too old. I'm not touching it. So I don't know. I think that's a pain point. I think the mental exercise of really planning and planning well is also hard for people, but maybe it's hard to like pinpoint that as the source of waste, right? Like I think it very much creates waste, but if you were trying to like definitively say this is what causes it, maybe it's a little bit hard to pinpoint, but it is a big mental exercise to plan well.
Yeah, I think planning has been a big movement for me because I am not a leftovers person. Unless it's like a pizza or something, I'm not going back for it. I'm like, you know what? That was yesterday's thing. I'm tired of it. So if I don't have leftovers, it's been a good day. If there's nothing in there that I'm like, okay, cool, I got to stash this for another time. That's fine.
Yeah.
Um, now, earlier you had mentioned people struggle with date labels. This is something that I have also struggled with in the past because I am so scared of food poisoning and eating something that's expired. So I'm reading those things constantly. If you had to say how much household food waste is actually being driven by confusion over best buys, sell bys, use by dates, what should customers know? How big is a factor is that? And then what are we looking at to kind of solve those issues?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm not aware of any research that could say like 20% of waste is happening
Sure.
because of date labels. Like, so I don't have those numbers. But when we're talking to households about what these labels mean, I would say the food industry is trying to move to a more standardized two label system. And now we've also seen some states pushing it forward. So California is one of the states that has now pushed forward. They're actually wanting to remove the labels and those sorts of things. But the big thing I think to communicate to households is really in the two label system, there is best if used by, and that's trying to indicate product quality. So your cereal, your Cheerios might say best if used by, September 1st. That means you can still eat them past September 1st, but eventually they might start getting a little bit more chewy than they were when you
Who
originally
doesn't
bought
love a
them.
chewy Cheerio? Oh my God.
Right, yeah. But then the second label is more like use by, and that even though there's not really a lot of legislation about like hard use by dates, only in baby formula do we actually have that. Use by is meant to indicate more like a safety sort of issue. So you see use by a lot on like meat or dairy or sorry, like cheese, dairy, those sorts of things. And use by is like you actually need to do something with it and then or freeze it. A lot of them say use or freeze by. And so that's meant to be an indicator more of safety instead of quality. So if it's getting close to that date or you've hit that date or maybe even a day past it, then I think the best thing you can do as a consumer is to rely on your senses, right? Are we starting to see discoloration? Is it smelling funny? And if like you're concerned based on sensory characteristics, like, then maybe it's time. Maybe we got to find something else to do with it.
Feel like I smell every food I'm about to consume anyway, just because of out of habit. No matter how fresh it is when I bought it, I'm like, I'm smelling this. It's,
Yeah.
it's not a chance that I'm risking it at any point.
Yeah, that's my husband's job at home.
All right, the official smell person in the
Yeah.
house is like, all right, make sure this is fine. Um, okay, so families, if they want to cut their food waste in half, let's say over the next month, any practical changes that you think your research would suggest that they make to make the biggest difference?
So the first one I would say is you actually need to track it. And I
Okay.
think the one of the most surprising things that people find out is just when they have to actually sit and track it for even 5 days, it's not always the things that they thought were happening. So I would say the best way is to actually spend time tracking it at home first and then see what happens. And then I think after that, I would pick, just one or two small tangible like changes that you can make and you can have the people in your household if you have like a family in a household, but even if you're just on your own, like what are one or two things you can really commit to and try? So in my household, the my personal food waste vice, I guess, is I'm an optimistic vegetable buyer. I always buy lots, and then yeah, my kids don't want to eat them, or I'm just like, oh, I'm tired, or they just go bad really quickly. Sometimes cucumbers are really hard for me. So really saying I'm not going to buy more than I need. Something like that. Or I'm going to build in a leftovers night in my meal plan, or I'm going to budget a takeout night. Just like picking one or two tangible things to try, I would say is like the way to start, right? And if you can build one good habit, then maybe the next month you can build on one more new thing to try or something like that. So, and I think trying to make it where it's not just in a lot of households, there might be one person that's responsible for more of the food tasks than another. Trying to make it where it's not all just on that one person. Like try to make it a family activity if it's a big household, that helps you have more accountability partners, or even putting a meal plan on your refrigerator so everyone sees it and it's not just one person's job to like manage that mentally and have others kind of help them be accountable to it.
Yeah, I think a stressed person is more likely to waste things, right?
Yes, yes. That's actually some of the research we're looking at now is like how does stress relate to like confidence in food management behaviors? How does it relate to actual food waste outcomes? So that is some of the stuff we're working on right now.
Just need more happy people.
Yeah,
Just we
yeah.
need more happy people and we'll have less food waste, right? All right. So growing attention around food waste, like I said, we talked about this on the show at length because it's going to be a conversation for probably ever. But we're looking at industry and we're looking at policymakers. Are there any policies or programs that have shown promise in changing consumer behavior? Do you think there's still room for improvement? Anything you're paying attention to?
I definitely think there's room for improvement. We are seeing more momentum again on this date labeling to at least get more standardized systems. So I think that's encouraging. And even if it only starts in one or two states, from a manufacturer perspective, they're not going to want to only change product date labels for one state, right? So if you can get the ball rolling, it's probably going to have like nice spillovers for the entire country. Um, I think there's also a lot of momentum on the other end. So the diverting it from landfills. And so you see sometimes a lot of investment into grants to like, how can we get community composting set up or things like that. So I do think that's also a really important step. Like we still do have a lot of inedible waste. And so you've got to have something to do with that anyways. And so I do think there's lots of both public and private investment in trying to have options like that. Something where I live that would be nice to have more of is like actual food scraps recycling options. So there's, some cities have that already as something that's naturally part of, normal like trash service. There's actually organic waste collection, but that's not the case everywhere. So having more widespread availability of that would also be nice, though again, that comes at a cost for households.
it comes at a cost, and it goes back to having that responsibility too. Like you have to want to
Right.
do it, and how
Yeah.
many people want to pay for it and then want to do it, and it's not a foolproof system, but it helps, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's zoom out. Let's talk about the Food Conservation Challenge, second annual. What kind of ideas are you hoping that people are submitting for this challenge? What do you think are some of those everyday kitchen hacks that people have? And we're looking to influence broader waste strategies. What's going on there?
Yeah, so this is our second annual challenge. So last year was our first one because that was when our center's website came up. And we really just wanted to give people a chance to like share their wisdom with each other because honestly, when I think about managing food, I like how much knowledge has been lost since like my grandma, right? Like my grandma had all these things and then, a lot of that got passed down to my mom and like I don't know if it's me personally, it's just like I didn't get it, right?
Yeah,
So
one in
honestly, it's
one
a
ear, one out the
learning
other. Yeah.
yeah, it's a learning exercise for me too. And so, it could be what do you do to keep strawberries lasting longer in the fridge, right? So those are something that sometimes can go really fast when you get them. But it could also be what's something really cool that you do with your leftover vegetable stocks, or like what's a nice recipe that you make out of like some random leftover that's sitting in the fridge. So some of our winners last year had some really cool ideas. One of them was someone who had, and this happens in my house a lot too, when you have like milk that's near kind of the end date, if they couldn't use it, they would actually measure it out and then freeze it in like pre-measured cubes and then save that. So they might do it in like 2 tablespoon increments, freeze the cubes, date them so they know when they were from. But then you can put them back in smoothies or soup or mac and cheese, even when you're making it at the end, those sorts of things. But we had another person tell us how they make a really good salad dressing out of like the leftovers in a jelly jar. So there's lots of different things you can see. One person was like amazingly creative and talked about how they got like 3 different meals out of a rotisserie chicken and like was just giving like tips on, how you can really spread that out and get the most out of it. Food is just so expensive right now. So any tips that we can share and like broaden our knowledge base, that's really what we're looking for. So it's not in any one certain area, but we would love to hear people's strategies on what works for them at home.
Yeah, that's good having that creativity because I think I'm pretty food illiterate and I just like I'm not a good chef, I'm not a good cook. So when I'm putting meals together, I'm like, what goes with this? I have no idea. Half of my meals I am throwing a rotisserie chicken into something. Like it's
Yeah,
whatever it is. I have a salad. All right, rotisserie chicken's going in that. Ramen, rotisserie chicken's going out.
why
Why not?
not?
Just throwing it all together. So I appreciate the creativity that exists out there.
Yeah, no, it's great. And yeah, like we also, I mean, to the problem you just mentioned, there's even on our website, we also do a blog, and like one of the really popular blogs is actually about different apps you can use at home. And like there's so many more apps now that can like scan your pantry and give you nice suggestions with what's sitting there and things like that. So we like to write about those too and just try to help people find things that might be useful for them at home.
Yeah, and I know this, not everyone is in on the AI train, but sometimes I'll just go open ChatGPT. I'm like, I have these in my house. What can I do with this? And they'll tell me like, oh, here it goes. I can't say the recipe is always good, but I've tried them.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, later or coming up in this fall, looking at food waste prevention week. What role do awareness campaigns like this play? If we're talking, does the research show that it's leading to lasting behavior change? Do these campaigns need to be paired with other efforts to make a real impact? Does the general public know about Food Waste Prevention Week?
Yeah, so Food Waste Prevention Week, again, like our center cannot take credit for this idea. This is something that started in 2021, but it's grown. And so our center is one of the partners, of which there are hundreds of partners across the US and even across the world. So I believe last year they said they were in 49 states and at least like 22 countries. So it is growing. And I would say behavior change definitely can't happen without awareness. So these campaigns are good in that sense. So they are doing really fun things, like there's contests for students, like a poetry contest, and I think maybe a coloring contest or something like that. But there's also a cooking challenge associated. with Food Waste Prevention Week. And so I think these campaigns are nice because one, there's been, really creative people that put a lot of work into the campaign itself. This year it's food heroes in your neighborhood. So again, I think talking about just these everyday things that people do to stretch their food dollars and try to prevent food waste from happening. So they design really great materials that make it easier for people who want to share that knowledge, but maybe don't have those skills or don't have the time to develop full campaigns. Like that helps spread the awareness just by having the resources available. And for those communities that are already really in tune with this, they can also tailor the messaging. They can add more, they can add extra events and tie to it. So I do think, again, behavior change can't happen without that awareness. So that is really important. And I think something else that's on the horizon past Food Waste Prevention Week that's really exciting is there was a really large EPA grant. And so we're also going to see a big national campaign from the Ad Council in 2027 that's, again, trying to target food waste prevention at the household level. So I feel like it was about 6 or 7 years ago, the Ad Council did billboards and different types of messaging on the date labels specifically and just trying to get people aware of food waste. And so now we're going to see another iteration of that. And so again, we can't really move the needle if people don't know it's a problem, right? So it's important to get that awareness step in there.
Yeah, speak with like food waste, I guess neighborhood heroes. If you gotta pair right now, Spider-Man's big. You gotta pair food waste with Spider-Man and just let them know like, hey, Spider-Man hates food waste. You got come on, guys. You gotta get with the program here.
Yeah, I try it. Yeah, whatever I could tie it to at home with kids, right? Like, I see Batman in your background. Like, Batman would not waste food.
Yeah, I mean, he's for justice, not for wasting. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. If we're looking ahead, I always like to kind of ask a crystal ball type question. We're looking at what might be some of the biggest breakthroughs in reducing food waste in the households that you think? Is it the better consumer education? Do you think smarter packaging? Is AI making waves, policy changes, combination of all those? What, in your opinion, do you think is going to make a big breakthrough for us?
The reality is I think it has to be a combination, right? It's hard to get a silver bullet solution. So I do think policy will play a big role if states or even local governments decide they want to have more emphasis on diverting food from the landfill. That will make a big difference. But I think AI also matters. Like we know it affects how people are engaging with food. And you mentioned, I throw in that I have these things like we get emails from people developing apps all the time, like, at least one or two a month, like I'm developing an app trying to use AI to help people reduce waste, right? So we know those things are out there. Uptake rates, right? It's hard to know how long people will stick with them. One thing that I really hope, and this is something we're doing more research on, is trying to really think about households as individuals. So there's a lot of emphasis on date labeling, but date labeling education is not the problem that every household has or needs to be solved, right? So some of it's also, again, getting households to look at their own behavior and be advocates for themselves and what works. And so we had a really cool project we did where households tracked for 5 days. Then they came to talk to us about what they learned. And we had a grant where we could actually give each household up to $100 to invest in themselves. So right now, money is just a barrier, right? I'd love to have clear storage containers to not lose my food in the fridge, but I'm not going to spend my money on that. It needs to go somewhere else. So we tried to remove that financial barrier for them and actually, okay, here, what can I get for you? And so we bought tons of vacuum sealers for people. We bought lots of clear storage containers. And I think if we can find ways, maybe this could be an employee wellness programs or something, how can we give people points to kind of remove those barriers to experimentation and letting people choose their own intervention. I just feel like when people have more autonomy over what's happening, they're more willing to buy in and be happy about the changes versus someone saying you must now separate your food scraps, right? So I think we want that buy-in from the household side versus forced.
Just got to get them involved. Got to get them going.
Yeah.
All right. One myth about food waste that you hear all the time, what would it be?
I don't do it in my house. That doesn't happen.
I don't waste food.
We don't have that. We hear that a lot. And then you do the 5-day tracking. It's oh.
Yeah. I guess the delusion would weigh into this whole problem too. So we got to get over that I'm holier than thou. I don't waste food. Wait,
And
eggshells
I
is
don't
food
even
waste?
think I don't think people mean it that way. Like I think people genuinely, genuinely believe like we're pretty good at it. And most days probably people are, but then you have that clean out day and you're like, what happened here, right?
Yeah.
There are so many things, right? So I don't know if it's a myth, but it's something we hear a lot, and then that doesn't necessarily always track with reality.
Gotcha. Oh, that bag of
Yeah.
lettuce is brown. I didn't even know
Yeah.
we had that. Oh
Oh,
no.
yeah, yeah.
All right, Brenda, that's the end of my questions. Anything that I missed that you wanted to go over today about what you're working on, what you have going on for you?
I think the big thing is going back to the food conservation challenge. Just we have that going on where people can enter all the way through the end of Food Waste Prevention Week, which is October 4th, and we're giving out at least five $100 like gift cards for the winners, and then we have a raffle for like extra winners as well. So definitely make sure and check out our website conservefood.org for how to submit and get your good ideas out there.
And that was my next question. Where can we people find more about you and what's going on? But it looks like the plug's in, everybody. So let get there.
Awesome.
All right, Brenna. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for being here, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks so much.